Okay, let's unpack this. If you work in an office, chances are you spend a lot of time sitting down.
Oh, absolutely. Hours and hours.
And, if you're like most people, you've probably felt that ache, that kind of persistent thing in your back or shoulders by the end of the day.
We're just totally wiped out, yeah.
Exactly. It's super common. But does actually getting up, using something like a sit-stand desk, does it make a real difference?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Well, that's exactly what this deep dive is all about today. We're looking into this whole issue of sitting for long stretches at work.
And specifically, at one potential solution, the sit-stand desk.
Right. Our main source is this study. It was published in the journal Ergonomics.
Yeah, good journal.
Uh,
The title is pretty descriptive. Impact of a 6-month sit-stand desk-based intervention on regional musculoskeletal discomfort and overall post-work fatigue in office workers.
so these researchers, they basically wanted to see, okay, if we give people these desks for 6 months, does it actually change their discomfort or fatigue compared to people who just keep working like normal?
It's exactly comparing the intervention to standard practice.
So our mission today is to really dig into this. We want to understand the scale of the sitting problem first, then look at what this specific study found about pain and fatigue.
And there are some nuances there, definitely.
Yeah, we need to wrestle with those and ultimately figure out what this might mean for you listening if you spend hours at a desk.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so let's start with the problem itself. Sedentary behavior. It's not just about feeling stiff, is it?
Not at all. I mean, this source calls it a massive global health issue. It's linked to chronic diseases, mortality.
Yeah, the study mentions an estimate like 1.9 million deaths worldwide, linked to physical inactivity, which includes a lot of sitting.
Wow, 1.9 million. That really puts it in perspective. It's not trivial.
No. And it's connected to things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, serious stuff.
And a huge chunk of that sitting time happens at work, right?
Yeah, especially in developed countries.
Mhm.
Adults might spend over 60% of their waking hours sitting while they're working.
And for office workers specifically, the study says it could be around 75% of the workday.
75%. That's a lot of sitting.
And often in long blocks, too, like 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes more without even getting up.
And that posture, leaning forward, neck craned.
Right. The ergonomics often aren't great. Plus, repetitive movements with the mouse or keyboard, it all adds up.
Puts real strain on your body. The study says it's a big contributor to musculoskeletal discomfort, basically pain.
And they have a stat for that, too, right? Something like 90%.
Yeah, 90% of office workers report pain they think is linked to their work posture. It's huge.
And the common spots are probably what you'd expect. Neck, shoulders.
Neck, shoulders, and yeah, definitely lower back pain. Those are the big ones mentioned.
Okay, so there's the direct physical pain.
Yeah.
But there's also this fatigue aspect, right? Feeling drained after work.
Exactly. The study talks about the balance between sitting time and active time at work and how that affects your need for recovery afterwards. They call it post-work fatigue.
So even if your job isn't like super physically demanding.
Right, even office work. That prolonged sitting or those repetitive motions, they cause biomechanical strain.
And that strain over time can actually predict things like needing more sick days, chronic pain issues.
Yeah, and just that general feeling of fatigue, being drained, lacking energy, it's really common.
The study hints that even small bits of activity during the day might help reduce that need for recovery later.
Which leads us nicely into the study itself. They tried to tackle this with sit-stand desks. How did they set it up?
Okay, so it was a controlled trial. They had 38 office workers, ages 24 to 60, mostly women, about 77%.
And it was a cluster randomized controlled trial. What does that mean?
Basically, instead of randomizing individuals, they randomized existing groups or clusters of workers who work near each other.
Ah, why do that?
It helps avoid contamination. Like if you have a sit-stand desk and your neighbor doesn't, you might influence each other. Grouping them keeps the conditions more separate.
Makes sense. Okay, so 2 groups. What did the intervention group get? The ones with the fancy desks.
And they got the works. A sit-stand desk, obviously, but also education on why sitting less is good.
Show context.
Yeah, and a demo on how to use the desk properly, ergonomically, plus personalized posture tips.
Oh, personalized.
And advice on how to gradually increase standing time, not just jump into standing all day.
Right, ease into it. Was that it? Just the desk and initial info?
No, they kept up the support. They got motivational nudges like emails, access to a website with videos and testimonials from others.
Okay. Trying to keep them engaged.
And monthly reflection emails, too, prompting them to think about how they were using the desk.
Right. So what about the control group, the comparison group?
They just continued with their normal desks and work setup.
No changes.
Well, they did get that initial educational session about reducing sitting, just the info part.
Ah, okay. So they knew sitting was an issue, but didn't get the tool or the extra support.
Exactly. No desk, no nudges during the 6 months.
Yeah.
They were told they could get a desk after the study finished, though.
Okay. So how did the researchers actually measure if this intervention worked? What were they looking for?
They looked at a few key things. First, musculoskeletal discomfort.
The aches and pains.
Right. They used a standard questionnaire, the Nordic Musculoskeletal Questionnaire. Participants rated their discomfort 0 to 9 in 9 different body parts.
Fine. Which ones?
Neck, shoulders, elbows, hands, wrists, upper back, lower back, hips, thighs, knees, and ankles, feet. Pretty comprehensive.
And they got an overall score from that.
Yep. Just added up the scores for an overall discomfort measure.
Okay. What else? You mentioned fatigue.
Yes. Post-work fatigue. They use something called the Need for Recovery Scale. It's 11 yes-no questions.
Simple enough.
Yeah. And basically, a higher score means you feel like you need more recovery time after work, more fatigue.
Got it. And did they check if people were actually sitting less or standing more?
Yes, and this is a strength. They use objective measurement. Participants wore an activity monitor, an Active PAL 4.
What does that do?
The little device, usually worn on the thigh, that can accurately tell if you're sitting, standing, or stepping. Much better than just asking people to guess.
Yeah, I definitely underestimate how much I sit.
Most people do. So they wore this for 7 days at the start, and again 6 months later.
And it measured things like total sitting time.
Total sitting, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also prolonged sitting, like bouts of 30 minutes or more or 60 minutes or more, plus standing time and stepping time.
Okay, so objective behavioral data. That's good.
Definitely.
So collected all this info at baseline, then 6 months later, what happened? What did they find?
Okay, here's where it gets interesting and, like you said, a bit nuanced.
Uh-oh, nuance.
Yeah. So if you look just within the group that got the sit-stand desks and the support.
Intervention group.
Right. Over the 6 months, they saw some really positive changes compared to where they started.
Like what?
They had a statistically significant reduction in their overall musculoskeletal discomfort score.
Significant, meaning unlikely to be just random chance.
Exactly. The math checked out. On average, their overall discomfort went down.
Okay, that sounds good. What about fatigue?
Same story there. The intervention group also showed a significant reduction in their overall post-work fatigue scores after 6 months, compared to their own baseline.
Okay, so the group using the desks felt less overall discomfort and less overall fatigue after 6 months. That sounds like a win.
It definitely points towards a benefit, yeah.
So what about the control group? The ones just working normally, did their scores change?
Nope. The control group showed no significant changes in either overall discomfort or overall fatigue over those same 6 months.
Okay, so intervention group got better on overall measures. Control groups stayed the same. That seems clear. Intervention works. But you mentioned nuance.
Ah, yes, the nuance. This is the tricky part, the time group interaction the study talks about.
Okay, break that down. Time my group interaction.
So even though the intervention group improved significantly within themselves.
Compared to their own starting point.
Right. The statistical test that directly compared the amount of change in the intervention group versus the amount of change in the control group, that comparison didn't show a statistically significant difference.
Wait, so the intervention group got better, the control group didn't, but the difference in how much they changed wasn't statistically significant. How does that work?
It sounds counterintuitive, I know. Think of it like this. The intervention group improved maybe by, say, 2 points on average. The control group might have stayed almost exactly the same, maybe changed by 0.1 points. The difference between improving by 2 and improving by 0.1 might not have been large or consistent enough across everyone in this particular study sample to meet the threshold for statistical significance when comparing the groups directly.
So there was improvement in the group, but the study couldn't mathematically prove that this improvement was significantly greater than any tiny fluctuations in the control group.
Pretty much. It's a statistical distinction. It means, based only on this direct comparison between groups in this study, they couldn't definitively say the intervention caused a significantly larger change than what happened in the control group. It tempers the conclusion a bit.
Okay, that is nuanced. So overall comparison between groups wasn't significant. Did the desks help with pain in any specific body parts?
They looked at that too. And again, it was a bit mixed. Within the intervention group, there were trends towards less discomfort in the shoulders and the lower back.
Trends, meaning close but not quite significant.
Exactly. The p-values were close to the typical cutoff, like 0.06 or 0.056, suggesting something might be happening there. But it didn't quite hit the mark for statistical significance for those specific regions.
So, possible hints of improvement for shoulders and lower back in the DESC group, but not statistically proven for those specific areas.
Correct. And for the other areas they measured, elbows, wrists, upper back, hips, knees, ankles, there were no significant changes in discomfort in either group over the 6 months.
Okay, so pulling it together. Significant improvement in overall discomfort and fatigue within the intervention group. No significant difference between the groups when comparing changes. And mostly non-significant results for specific body regions, though maybe some hints for shoulder and low back.
That's a good summary of the main findings.
It's definitely more complex than just sit-stand desks work or they don't work. Why do the researchers think they got these? Well, mixed results.
They offer a few potential explanations, especially since other studies on sit-stand desks have also had varied findings.
Okay, like what?
One big one goes back to that objective data from the activity monitors.
The active-HAL data? What did that show about sitting time?
Well, here's a key finding. Despite having the desks and the encouragement, there was no significant difference in total daily sitting time between the intervention group and the control group after 6 months.
Really? Even with the sit-stand desks, their total sitting time didn't drop compared to the controls?
Not significantly, no. Now, the intervention group did significantly reduce their prolonged sitting bouts, those long stretches of 30 or 60 minutes plus. So they broke up their sitting more often.
Ah, okay. So they stood up more frequently, but maybe didn't replace enough total sitting time with standing or moving.
That's what the researchers suggest. Maybe just breaking up the sitting isn't enough for widespread pain relief across all body parts. You might need to actually cut down your overall sitting hours more substantially.
That makes intuitive sense. Standing for 5 minutes every hour is very different from standing for, say, half the day.
Exactly. They also float the idea that maybe reducing sitting time by itself isn't the whole answer.
What else might be needed?
Perhaps interventions need to also actively promote other types of movement, like encouraging walking breaks, or even incorporating specific exercises.
Like stretching or strengthening for those problem areas like the back and shoulders.
Potentially, yeah. Just swapping sitting for standing might not be enough to combat muscle pain if you're not also addressing muscle strength or flexibility.
Okay. Were there any other factors they thought might have played a role?
They mentioned the timing of the second data collection. It happened during what they called an intense academic season for these university workers.
So maybe people were just slammed with work.
Possibly. Higher workload might have led people, even those with sit-stand desks, to sit more than usual during that specific period, which could have sort of masked or reduced the intervention's benefits. Real life getting in the way.
Real life, yeah. Always a factor. What about the people in the study? Did their starting points matter?
They suggest it might have. For some body areas, the participants started with quite low levels of pain on average.
So not much room for improvement.
Exactly. It's statistically harder to show a significant reduction if the pain is already low. They speculate that if they had recruited people who already had higher levels of musculoskeletal pain, the results might have been different, maybe clearer.
That makes sense. Did they comment on the intervention itself? Like, could it have been stronger?
They did touch on that. The lack of a significant difference between the groups might partly be because the intervention, while it had multiple parts, maybe wasn't intensive enough for everyone.
How so?
They suggest maybe more personalized follow-up, like one-on-one sessions or more frequent check-ins, could be needed. There's this idea that the novelty of a new desk can wear off.
Yeah, the first few weeks you're excited, then maybe you slip back into old habits.
Right. Without ongoing support, or maybe adapting the strategy, the effects might fade. They reference other research suggesting these multi-component interventions, the ones that keep evolving, tend to be better for long-term changes like sitting less.
So the desk is a tool, but maybe not the whole solution on its own. Needs support, maybe other elements?
That seems to be the implication. But crucially, even with all these caveats about the between-group comparison,
we shouldn't forget the within-group findings.
Exactly. That significant reduction in overall discomfort and overall fatigue within the intervention group is still a really positive signal. It does support the general idea that finding ways to be less sedentary at work can benefit how you feel overall.
And those trends for the shoulder and lower back, even if not fully significant.
They're still interesting, right? They hint that maybe the intervention is starting to work on those common problem areas, and it reinforces the idea that people respond differently.
Individual variation.
Yeah, someone's back might feel much better, someone else's shoulder. Exploring why that happens, the individual factors, is really important for figuring out how to help specific people.
Okay, good points.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the study's quality overall. What were its main strengths?
Well, as we mentioned, using that objective active fell monitor for sitting and standing time is a big plus. Much better than self-report for behavior.
Definitely.
Using validated, standard questionnaires for discomfort and fatigue is also good practice. It means they use tools known to be reasonably reliable.
And the study design.
Being a randomized controlled trial, even a cluster randomized one, is generally considered a strong design for trying to figure out if an intervention actually causes an effect.
Okay, so some solid methodological points. What about the limitations? Where should we be cautious?
One limitation is still the self-report nature of the discomfort and fatigue questionnaires. People are reporting how they feel.
Right, and you can't be 100% sure the pain is only from work or if maybe you tweaked your back gardening on the weekend.
Exactly. It's hard to perfectly isolate the source, and there's always potential for bias in how people remember or report things.
Makes sense. Any other limitations?
The sample itself has some characteristics to keep in mind. The age range was quite broad, 24 to 60.
Could different ages respond differently?
Possibly, yeah. But the sample size wasn't big enough to really analyze age groups separately. Also, it was mostly women and workers at a university.
So maybe the results don't perfectly apply to, say, a male-dominated factory office or a call center. It's possible. Generalizability might be limited. And another key point. They didn't specifically recruit or randomize based on initial pain levels.
We talked about that if people started low, it's hard to show big drops.
Right. Recruiting people with existing issues might give a clearer picture of the potential for relief.
Okay, so bringing this all together for someone listening right now, maybe feeling that afternoon ache, what's the main takeaway? Does this mean a sit-stand desk is worth it or not?
I think the takeaway is that, based on this study, getting a sit-stand desk isn't likely to be an instant magic cure for every single specific pain you might have.
Okay, manage expectations.
Yeah, but it does show real promise for reducing your overall level of discomfort and how fatigued you feel after work. And those are significant benefits for quality of life and maybe even productivity.
So positive, but maybe more for the general feeling than targeting every specific ache.
That seems fair based on these findings.
So if a workplace is thinking about this, or if you're thinking about getting one for yourself, what's the practical advice stemming from this? The study really points towards implementing sit-stand desks as potentially one part of a bigger picture. A multi-component strategy seems best.
Don't just drop off the desk and walk away.
Exactly. Think about combining it with other things, maybe promoting regular short walks, using activity trackers, providing ongoing education or reminders.
What kind of support works?
The study mentioned things like educational sessions, maybe occasional check-ins, software prompts to stand or move, or, as we discussed, maybe even integrating some simple office-friendly exercises or stretches.
So bundling strategies seems key.
Yeah. The literature they cite suggests that combined approaches are generally more effective for actually changing sitting habits long-term and getting the most health benefit.
So the desk is a valuable tool, but needs to be part of a larger toolkit for workplace wellness and movement.
I think that's a great way to put it. And of course, the researchers say we need more research.
Always more research. What specifically?
Larger studies are needed. Definitely studies that focus on people who already have significant pain to see if these desks can provide relief in those cases. And we need to look longer term, beyond 6 months.
And what about that individual variation piece?
Yes, that's crucial. Future studies really need to dig into why people respond differently and how we can tailor interventions. Maybe some people benefit most from just standing, others need more walking, others need specific exercises.
Personalization.
Exactly. Moving towards more individualized approaches based on someone's specific needs and how their body responds seems like the next frontier.
Okay, so let's try to sum up this deep dive. This study shows sit-stand desks, along with support, can lead to significant improvements in overall discomfort and fatigue for office workers.
Yes, definite positives there within the group that used them.
But the picture is a bit more complex. The direct comparison between the desk group and the control group didn't show a statistically significant difference in the amount of change overall.
Right, that statistical nuance is important.
And effects on specific body parts were mostly not significant, though there were hints for shoulders and lower back.
Suggesting it's maybe not a cure-all for every specific ache, at least not based on this study alone.
And the likely takeaway is that these desks are probably most effective when they're part of a broader strategy.
Yeah, one that encourages more movement throughout the day, provides ongoing support, and maybe includes other elements like targeted exercises.
Recognizing that what works best might differ from person to person.
Absolutely.
Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to ponder. Considering how much individual responses seem to vary with these kinds of interventions,
Yeah.
how can workplaces, or even us as individuals, move towards creating truly personalized ergonomic and activity plans? Strategies that really cater to each person's unique job, body, and needs to help everyone feel better and work better.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we get beyond the one-size-fits-all approach?
Oh, sure.
Definitely something to think about.